Hey, it's Chris from Piggeek, and we're going to talk about the Mass Effect 3 Extended Cut DLC that was released yesterday. So as I'm sure most of you are already aware, when Mass Effect 3 was released back in March, despite it being for the most part a fantastic end to the trilogy, fans very quickly started to voice their displeasure with the 3 possible endings. There's been plenty of discussion on this topic already, but very briefly, here are some of the major problems that players had with how the game originally concluded. It felt rushed. The implications of each choice were badly explained and only became more confusing as they were dissected by fans of the series. A major concern, for example, was the destruction of the mass relay network, which had to happen in all 3 endings. Without the mass relays, the collected forces of the galaxy were stranded in the Sol system, and yet at no point was this mentioned, either before or after Shepard makes his decision. Another sign that hinted towards a rushed development was just how similar the cutscenes were following each decision. Despite the options being drastically different, destruction, synthesis or control of the Reapers, the cutscenes were mostly repeated with a different coloured explosion representing the significance of your choice. The endings proved to be disappointing for many fans who had been invested in the Mass Effect universe for more than 4 years. And so cupcakes were sent, complaints were filed, and Bioware eventually announced that they would be releasing DLC that would expand the endings with additional cinematic sequences and epilogue scenes. This extended cut DLC would be free of charge, and its announcement served to sate fans who had so far done a good job of making sure their complaints were heard. Here we are almost 3 months later, and it's now time to ask the question, have Bioware managed to fix the Mass Effect 3 endings with this DLC? Well, the answer to that is quite obviously going to be a matter of personal opinion, but it very much comes down to what you as an individual see as the problem that needed to be fixed. As the name suggests, this DLC is an extension of each ending, and although a 4th option has been added, for the most part this DLC isn't a reimagining of how the story ends, but instead it tries to better explain what effects your decision has had. Which means that if you originally appreciated the idea of the catalyst and the weight of the 3 decisions before you, but were at the same time frustrated with the lack of detail or how similar the cutscenes turned out, then you're probably going to be quite satisfied with the extended cut. If we look at the synthesis ending in particular, it sheds some light into how organics and synthetics, including the Reapers themselves, work together to rebuild, although I have no idea how the husks, the cannibals, the banshees fit into that equation. It indicates that the galaxy is at peace and will go on to prosper using the advanced knowledge of past cycles, and importantly it pays tribute to Shepard and shows the Normandy crew making their way home, something that the original endings didn't even hint towards being possible. That sense of closure is important to a story that players clearly care about. However, if you're part of the camp that felt that the ending of Mass Effect 3 should represent all of those big decisions that you've made along the way, then a few extra cutscenes aren't really going to do the trick. Sure, there are a number of still images showing characters that may have ended up in different situations depending on your actions, but that's about as far as it goes. My personal feelings towards Mass Effect 3 endings can be explained by thinking about the Rachni. Remember those guys? They're a species that almost wiped out the major races of the galaxy and were only stopped by the Krogan, who had been uplifted by the Solarians and who in turn became yet another threat themselves. The Rachni Wars were a pretty big deal for the galaxy. And so in the first Mass Effect, when I was given the decision to either kill or spare the last Rachni Queen, it was one of the more difficult decisions that I've had to make in a video game. On one hand, the Rachni would surely be a huge asset in the eventual fight against the Reapers. If this species almost defeated the Citadel races, then just imagine how useful they would be as an ally. However, on the other hand, what if they turned against us? I could be making a huge mistake that would prove costly later down the line. Even without considering the idea that I would be destroying or saving an entire species, this was a big decision to make. And, well, it was moments like this which really pulled me into the Mass Effect series. During Mass Effect 2, I received a message informing me that the Rachni had survived and were building an army to help fight the Reapers. I couldn't wait to see that in action. We get to Mass Effect 3 and find that the Reapers have indoctrinated the Rachni Queen's children and are using them as part of their army. It looks like I did make a mistake after all, although in reality if I had killed her in Mass Effect, the Reapers create an artificial queen and nothing really changes. Fair enough, not everyone has played the first 2 games, I can understand why they want everyone to experience the Rachni. I save the Queen again and she sends some workers to help build the Crucible. I get an email about it. That's it. This huge decision that I thought I'd made, turns out it didn't matter in the slightest. At no point do you see the Rachni during the fight, and there's not even a still image in the final cutscenes. Mass Effect sells itself as a series of games with big choices and big consequences, and it has to be said, the now 4 decisions that you can make at the end of Mass Effect 3 are big choices with big consequences, but they feel very separate to the rest of the games. If your problem with the original endings is the lack of influence that your previous decisions should have had, then extended cutscenes won't really be enough to change your mind. And so in conclusion, Bioware have listened to some of the feedback they received, and it's certainly been appreciated by players. But Mass Effect is a hugely popular series and it's impossible to please everyone. I just wish they tried a little harder. Thank you very much for watching, and please go ahead and check out some of our other videos if you enjoyed this one. See you next time.